Yes. So I'm just sharing the screen. Okay. Yeah. So you are able to see, right, the whiteboard. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will start our discussion. So before we go, I think last class, we have seen this finite difference actually. Okay. So how you can solve this buckling problem, say, by this finite difference method. See, among all the numerical methods, if you see finite elements, spectral elements, finite volume, many methods are there. This finite difference is the oldest one, okay, and it is straightforward. So if you have any ordinary differential equation PDE, simply if you know Taylor series expansion, so you know everything about this finite difference method, and you divide this into grid points, and then you solve, you can get the solution. So it's a very straightforward method, and if you can develop your own MATLAB programs, okay, so then you can see how good is this finite difference method compared to this analytical result, and it is a very straightforward method. Okay. But only thing, as already we told, right, the convergence and other things, they are very important whenever you are doing any numerical methods, say, okay. So this is the most important thing, the convergence, like with the delta x, how much you see your values are going to do, other things, they become very important. But now here in the final difference, the only problem is, so this is sufficient, but if you are having a simply supported this whatever column, say, okay, and then you have this load p. Suppose if this p is also function of time, then it convergence, you see, will have a different issue. So when time also comes into picture, so things becomes little complex. So then you have to check for you see this stability, like as a t tends to infinity, say, who should not diverge and other things, kind of a thing, stability, all those issues comes into picture. So this portion we will see later on when we go towards dynamic loads. Okay, at a later stage we will see these things. So right now this much is sufficient finite difference introduction for buckling. So now let us go to this beam columns. Okay, so this already we have seen previously, but let us see in great detail. See why beam columns are very important in buckling. The reason is, we will now, after this beam columns, we have to analyze frames, that is a movement resisting frames, or so when you want to analyze the stability analysis of a framed structure, so say, then these beam columns you have to be very thorough. Okay, so the columns you should know, beam columns you should know. If you have a nice clarity about columns and beam columns, it will be very easy to analyze frame structures, which we will cover after this beam columns. Okay, so let us start our beam column. So now I think last class we have already started. So you have a simply supported the beam kind of a thing, so which is subjected to this load P. Okay, that is an axial load. And I think we started with a classical thing, that is you have a concentrated load at the middle, so L by 2 L by 2 kind of a thing. So these are most the for starting problems in our this structure analysis also, like simply supported with concentrated load, say. Now I think last class I already told you, you can solve this problem by a fourth order ODE, or you can solve this problem by a second order ODE. But fourth order ODE means on the right hand side you have to write load. So now how do we represent concentrated loads? You have to write in terms of direct delta functions. You should be very familiar with these type of functions, discontinuous functions, direct delta, then the step function and others. Then you can start with the fourth order ODE. Suppose if you are not, see, generally in our analysis, what we do is, you don't use the fourth order equation, because this problem is there, like concentrated loads and other things. What one does is, we write everything in terms of a second order ODE, where but only thing is, you should know the bending moment diagram, you should know how to draw the shear force diagram. Like that we solve in our analysis. Okay, so this problem, say, so now this already, so we have already said that we also will solve by this. So bending moment, so if you take any section, say, okay, so 0 less than x less than or equal to L by 2. So all of the bending on diagram says it py plus qx by 2. So this is your bending moment. So now this is an additional term which comes due to this your axial load. Okay, and if you substitute in your equation of equilibrium, say, okay, so you have EIY, you see, double dash kind of a thing you have. So this is equal to your bending moment kind of a thing. So now you substitute. I think last class also we have already written this expression. So you can write this as y double dash plus k square y is equal to minus q by 2 x by ei. Okay, so this is our equation where k is k square is you see p by ei kind of a thing. So now so you can also write this expression, say, so the right hand side also in terms of this itself by 2p k square kind of a thing. Okay, so everything you are writing in terms of is a k square. So now this is your the ordinary differential equation. So right hand side is not 0. So you have both the complementary function and then you see the particular integral itself. So two solutions will be there. So all of you are, I think, familiar actually how to write the solution. Right, how to write the particular integral. When your right hand side is x, how do you write the particular integral for this type of a problem? Since it is a function, say, we also write this as c plus a dx kind of a thing, and then you try to solve this one. So it is straightforward. So I will not go into those details. So I will write the solution y is equal to a cos kx, so plus b sine kx. No, minus this is your particular integral. Okay, so qx by 2p. So this is our solution for this beam column. Okay, so now I know we have to find out these constants. Our boundary conditions are y is equal to 0 at x is equal to 0. So this means your a becomes 0 kind of a thing. Now another boundary condition what we use is because of symmetry, say. So now at this place your slope is equal to 0. See now you can't use this boundary condition that at x is equal to L, y is equal to 0 kind of a thing is not allowed actually. Why? What is the reason? Can you use here? See, this y is equal to 0 we can use, but this portion we cannot use a boundary condition because as all of you know, right, the bending moment changes actually because of the concentrated load. So this bending moment expression is valid from 0 to L by 2 itself. Okay, so that's why we write boundary condition 1 here. Another condition is like this here. So this is how we write. So y is equal to 0 and y dash is also 0 at x is equal to L by 2. Okay, so now so you substitute and then you solve this expression. So finally you can solve for all those things. So you can write y as so q into sine kx by 2pk cos kl by 2 minus qx by 2p. So this is your deflection, and this is valid for 0 less than x less than or equal to L by 2 kind of a thing. So now so you can so now we can find out the maximum deflection, that is at L by 2. Okay, so if you try to find out at x is equal to L by 2, if you substitute and then you have to do some algebra because you have sine kl by 2 cos kl by 2, so you have tan terms coming into picture here. So this becomes q by so 2pk into say tan kl by 2, say, okay, minus kl by 2. Okay, so this is your maximum deflection here. Or if you want to write, say, in some nice format, so if we take u as some kl by 2, which is say L by 2 root of say p by ei, because k square is equal to p by ei kind of a thing. So you can write this expression as y max at x is equal to L by 2, and then if you substitute, say, that all other terms also, so you can also write this expression as q into k cube L cube by 16 pk u cube. So if you write everything in terms of u, okay, so this becomes multiplied by tan kl by 2 minus kl by 2, and then you reformat, say, slightly rearrange all these things. So ql cube by 48 ei. Okay, so 3 into tan u minus u by u cube actually. Okay, So this is how we can write, or this expression say is nothing but QL cube by 48 EI into some function say x, which is a function of u actually. Okay, so we are writing it in a nice format. So now you can, all of you can recognize, right, what is this quantity?
Maximum deflection of the beam at some point.
Simply support all of, right, WL cube by 48 EI kind of a thing. So when P is equal to 0 say, that means there is no axial load on the column, so your Y max, okay, at x is equal to L by 2. So you can substitute also when P is equal to 0 in this expression. So automatically you will get this one. So this becomes a delta max, which is WQL cube say by 48 EI. Okay, so this automatically it is the point. Now so now if you write so this is your so now if you write P by PE say, that is your buckling load, and this one where PE is your Euler buckling load, pi square EI by L square kind of a thing. So now if it just non-dimensionalize actual, okay, so P by PE here, so this becomes 4 EI U square by L square by pi square EI kind of a thing. So you can write this expression as 4u square say by pi square actually. Okay, so this is how we write our the loads. Now this quantity say, which is a very important kind of a thing. So this quantity we call as amplification factor. Okay, so this is like an amplification factor. See now when P is not equal to 0 say, so what it is trying to do is already the maximum deflection. So this maximum deflection, it gets amplified because of this axial load. And if you write that expression in terms of if you can expand that quantity say, okay, this thing, so your delta, so that is your deflection at L by 2 kind of a thing. So if you write this as delta naught 3 into tan u minus u by u cube say, okay, where your delta naught is QL cube by 48 EI. Just I am writing in terms of delta, so u is equal to KL by 2. So this also we know, and of course k is root of P by EI kind of a thing. So now your tan u, if you expand in a power series expansion say, all of this one. So tan u is expansion is u plus u cube by 3 plus 2u5 by 15. Okay, so 17u to the power of 7 by 315. So this is your power series expansion for a tan u. So now if you use this, so substitute say this tan u in this expression. Okay, so u gets cancelled, so you have delta is equal to so delta naught into 1 plus say some 2u square by 5 plus you have other terms u to the power of 4 by 105. Okay, plus so other higher order terms comes into picture. So now so we can do some more algebra here. So now your u square, that is your u term, has already visited KL by 2. So u square becomes k square L square by 4. So if you write in terms of say PL square by 4a, so k also you substitute here. So then pi square has in the numerator and the denominator also. So finally say, so this becomes 2.46 times P by PE. So if this is your Euler's buckling load actually, okay, pi square EI by L square. So now so if you substitute nicely, so delta say delta naught. So instead of u, we substitute this expression. So this becomes 0.984 P by P, where P is your Euler's buckling, that's a pi square EI by L square, plus 0.998. Okay, so P by P whole square. So like that, you will get this term. So we have eliminated u, and we are writing in terms of axial load itself, that is a P and a non-dimensional kind of a thing. So we are non-dimensionalizing with respect to this Euler's buckling load, which is nothing but pi square 4a, that pi square by pi square a, that Euler's buckling load we are substituting here, and non-dimensionalizing with respect to that, and we are trying to write these equations. So now from once again this is a power series expansion if you see say. So this entire term can be replaced by 1 by 1 minus P by PA. So this is your final expression. Okay, so now so P by P, this is how the power series expansion comes here. So this amplification factors say, or magnification also sometimes we say. So amplification or magnification factor. Okay, for a beam call. So this is your 1 by 1 minus I see P by P. So this is a very important quantity which is widely used in design actually. Okay, so when you are having an axial load acting on your beam, okay, not only your lateral load is there. So what we are trying to say is your deflection, it gets amplified by this much amount actually. Okay, so this is a very important this thing. Now similarly, so the bending moment also, the maximum bending moment also, if you try to find out, see for a simply supported beam subjected to concentrated load, so what's the maximum bending moment? No, you
QL by
remember
4.
QL by 4. So QL by 4 this one plus, because here we are having axial load say, so that becomes P into delta kind of a thing, and where bending moment will be maximum, obviously, right, at x is equal to L by 2 itself. So this is your bending moment. So now this also you substitute say nicely, if you try to write QL by 4 plus P into, you write this delta QL cube by, you see, 48 EI, then 1 by 1 minus P by P, and then you do some little bit algebra say here also. So you can write this expression as QL by 4, okay, QL by 4 into, you see, so 1 minus 0.18 P by P by, you see, 1 minus P by P. So this is also a beautiful expression, you see, which comes from this calculations. So you can see, so what is this quantity is nothing but, you see, it is also amplification or magnification or whatever you can say for bending moment. You followed it for bending moment. So this is an amplification factor for bending moment. This is your amplification factor for deflection actual. Okay, so this is how we obtain, you see, the maximum value, the amplification factors for deflection as well as for this bending moment due to a concentrated load. Okay, so now so if you here there are some interesting things are there. So like for example, if you try to plot say your deflection load versus deflection curve, that is Q versus delta. Now how this curve looks like Q versus delta say. Okay, so if you try to see this expression, so Q versus delta, how they are related to each other. Now where is that? Now see Q versus delta. Okay, so now how delta is related to the load. Now see how delta is related to your Q, to QL cube by 48 EI we have written here. So delta naught anyway is your QL cube by 48, you see, EI kind of a thing. So you can see Q and the delta say this deflection, maximum deflection, their relationship is through a linear relationship kind of a thing you have actually. Okay, now when P is equal to 0, now what happens to this expression? So P is equal to 0 means this evaporates, and then you have simply delta versus Q. It is a linear relation, and the slope of the line say will be this L cube you followed, right, mx kind of a thing. So that is which gives you the slope itself. So if you try to plot this equation say, so when P is equal to 0, it is a straight line. Okay, so this is how the load versus deflection diagram looks like. There is a maximum deflection, that is at x is equal to L by 2 itself. Okay, now when P is equal to is increasing say, when P is 0.4, so now what happens to this graph is something like this actually, 0.4 times your PE, that is Euler's buckling load. The graph looks like this, and as axial load is increasing say, as and it's a constant load but it is increasing kind of a thing, so then 0.7 times PCR, so you follow, right, the stiffness this comes down actually, the slope of this line. So this is how we see the relationship looks like. But here if you try to plot axial load versus deflection say, that is P by your P whatever the critical load versus you see the delta. Now what type of relationship is this one? So delta is anyway your maximum deflection, lateral deflection only, that QL cube by 48 EA is this expression is fine. But how delta and P are related? See what's the relationship between this delta and then your P by PCR. So you can see the relationship here is, or if you see this expression, say, you can easily find out that delta and your axial load, actually they are not linear kind of a relation. You have higher order terms, you see P by P, power series, this kind of a thing comes. So the curve is non-linear actually. Okay, so now the relationship between Q and delta is linear, you can see. So the lateral load and delta is a linear kind of a thing, but the P, say, that is a P by P non-dimensional thing versus a delta. So this is a non-linear curve actually. Okay, and then if you, for the time being, say, if you take Q as proportional to P. Okay, so if Q is proportional to P, so which means P is increasing, Q is also increasing. So P is 0, Q is also 0. Okay, so if that type of load is there, say, so then you will load versus deflection diagram will be, you see, something like this. Okay, so Q is proportional to, you see, P kind of a thing. And anyway, because when P is 0, Q is also 0, so you will have a graph like this. But now if you are having a constant Q and P is varying, okay, constant Q and varying axial load, P. So because of constant Q, already you will have some deflection will be there. That is a QL cube by 48 EI will be there, and you increase your load, say. So the curve is something, it looks like this. Okay, so this is how you can plot this. So this is your QL cube by 48 EI kind of a thing. So these is how the graphs looks like this. So here the most important thing which you should know is the load versus deflection, say, when there is a concentrated load, it is linear, but same axial load versus deflection, it is a non-linear. Okay, this is the most the important thing. You should understand these deflection diagrams. And another most important thing is, what is the effect of axial load on the beam column? So it amplifies the deflection and it amplifies the bending moment. And what is the most important thing is your P by PE kind of a thing. So this is the one which tells you how much your things are going to amplify or magnify the deflection as well as your bending moment itself. So now this way you can find out for any type of a load, like varying load, UDL, laterally distributed loads, everything you can find out. Okay. Now yes. Now, so you can find out for variety of these cases. So now suppose if you are having a laterally distributed lateral load, say, okay, so that is you have a UDL kind of a thing. So this also you can derive by writing this same procedure is all same. So but finally, say, when you try to write this one, so you will have delta is equal to delta naught 1 by, you see, 1 minus P by PE itself. So same expression comes. Okay, the magnification factor remains same, and your M max is same. So this becomes M naught into 1 plus 0.03 P by PE 1 minus P by PE kind of thing. So where your delta naught, say, is nothing but all of for a simply supported beam with distributed load. So your deflection is 384 EI kind of a thing. So for P is equal to 0, so this is a deflection, and your M naught, say. Okay, what is the maximum bending moment for UDL, the simply supported beam?
QL square by 8.
Excellent. So WL square by 8. So this is a famous thing which everybody should know. Okay, so now you can see whatever load is there, say, whether it is a UDL or a concentrated load or this load or that load or this load, what happens is, whatever you have studied in your undergraduate, say, they are perfectly valid actually. Only thing is you will have some amplification factors, and these amplification factors will be functions of this P by P, where P is anyway your Euler's law, pi square A by L square. Okay, so this is how you see we try to do for beam columns. So the amplifier, so now if you see many code books, say, maybe in American Steel, even in our IS 800 also somewhere here and there, you will have these type of amplifications when you are having this beam column kind of a thing. And all these amplifications, they will the most important thing is this P by P will be there actually. Okay, so based on this, you see, we do this design for this beam columns. So fine. So now this way you can analyze many type of many things actually. Okay, like you can find out for a variety support conditions. You can solve many kind of problems. Now when you are trying to do for continuous beams, okay, so you can have a continuous beams. You all of you would have studied here. Like a continuous beam, with multiple spans are there, even for frames say. Okay, so you have a portal frame or this type of the framed structures kind of a thing, rigid kind of thing, or whatever things you are going to do say. Now how do we handle this buckling of these type of continuous beams or this type of framed structures? So we should have something like a generalized way of handling these things. So now here, we use for variety support, we use this famous, the slope deflection equations. Okay, so we use this slope deflection method or something for buckling also. Okay, so for variety, so this is like a more generalized, kind of a thing. So buckling of beam, continuous beams, or even beams also you can use, or frames, so this is like a more generalized kind of a thing. Is this slope deflection has more generalized method. Okay, so all of you have studied, right, the slope deflection method in your undergraduate. I think you think you will study this in structure analysis or in advanced structure. I think in structure analysis itself you would have studied the slope deflection method. So where do we use the slope deflection? Can anybody tell me? Yeah.
Sir,
You would
it
have seen.
provides the relationship between bending moment and the rotation, theta, rotation at the joints.
Okay, not only rotations, I think what is the exact thing? So you can have even displacement also.
Also,
Okay,
yes.
and see, suppose some support sinking is there, say. Okay, so then you will have delta. You also will have thetas. So you have seen, right? I think what is another method you would have studied, compared to slope deflection? In structure analysis, two methods, were very widely popular. One is slope deflection, other one is moment distribution.
Moment distribution.
Right? So both of them are widely used. So slope deflection method, I hope all of you have done previously itself. Okay. So now what is the extra thing we have to do in our buckling? Like with the slope deflection equations, which you would have derived, or when you were undergraduates, whether I can directly use those equations here, or some changes we have to make when you do buckling. So your slope deflection equations, how did you derive in your UG? You remember? So we do, these axial forces are ignored actually. You remember? So we don't consider these axial forces. You assume only lateral loads. These type of loads are acting on your beam, and you would have derived those slope deflection equations in your UG. Okay, in structure analysis. But here, when you come to buckling, say, you have this lateral load also has to be included in your calculations. That means the slope deflection equations, whatever you have studied in your UG, you cannot use directly them in our buckling problems, because you have to derive once again the slope deflection equations, including this the axial load. Then we can use these type of equations and we can solve our problems. So generally in our structure analysis, so there is something what we call as a first order analysis. These just names, they use like this. So first order analysis, say, when you are using slope deflection method, which means axial loads are neglected. So we neglect this axial loads. So this we call as first order analysis. Generally in our structural, when you design beam columns and other things, beams, we don't, the axial loads may be there, but we ignore actually. Okay, in calculating the bending moments, rotations, we ignore it. But sometimes when buckling, when axial loads are also very high, say, when they are of comparable nature, so axial loads are also comparable. So if they are comparable, say, with the critical loads, so they are not that low that you can ignore them or something, so then your slope deflection equations, you have to include these axial loads also. So generally, in our structure analysis, this we call a second order analysis. There is nothing like first order or second. It's not like a Taylor series kind of a thing. Only thing is first order means the axial loads are very small, or they are very low compared to other things, so we ignore it, and then we calculate rotation, that deflection, bending moments, internal movements, and all those things we try to do. But when axial loads are very comparable magnitude, then you have to include them also and recalculate the slope deflection equations. And once you know the slope deflection equation, it is a very, very generalized method. It is very, very simple. You can use it for continuous beams, this frame structures, others automatically it comes up. Okay, so now let us see how to derive this slope deflection equations for first order and second. First order I will just briefly we will see, but second order is very important, so that we will do it in detail. Okay, so slope deflection equations say, so without the axial force. So all of you would have done, in your under UG, just a small derivation actually. Okay, so there are in several textbooks, they derive in a different format. Like theta a one, you assume unity, and then you take it like this also. Okay, so now you have any this one, so some the arbitrary load is acting here. So what we do is, we do to derive our slope deflection equations. Say, okay, so we assume like this. So we assume that your A, B, okay, both the ends, okay, so they become something like this. So the deflection, say, something like this here. So now this is your x-axis, okay, and if you take a tangent, so let us say this is theta a, okay, and here also you take a tangent. So this is theta b. So this quantity is it is your theta b kind of a thing. So now let us say this is your original coordinate system, say. So this support has moved by some delta a. Okay, so then this means, you see, this end, say, it has moved by delta b. Okay, so sometimes we write in terms of delta a, delta b, or sometimes we write in terms of, because it's anyway rigid body motion, so you can also write in terms of delta b minus delta a also. Okay, in many cases. So now this is your A and this is your B. Okay, both the sides. And let us say the internal movements, say here, so we denote like this. So all are clockwise kind of a thing. If you take as a positive, so this is MAB. So this is your BA. Okay, so these are the internal movements. And if you try to find out your the support reactions due to these internal movements also, you can they will be, say, MAB plus MBA, say, by L. Okay, so here also same thing will be there, but in other direction, MAB plus MBA by L. Okay, so this is how you would have studied in your UG. So whatever I am doing, there is nothing new. Whatever you studied in your UG only we are doing. So we have a span, you see, the L. Okay, so MAB, say, and your MBA, they are nothing but the internal movements. Now you followed. So the internal movements at the ends. Okay, so now suppose if the beam is fixed, say, what happens? Apart from this internal movements, you also will have some fixed end movements also. Sometimes this also we use, and you would have seen, right, in many textbooks, say, they denote this as some MFAB kind of a thing. Like this they write the fixed end moments, FEM. Sometimes FEM also they use many textbooks they write as FEM. Sometimes we confuse whether it's a finite element method or a fixed end moment. But in many structural analysis, say, the fixed end moments also we write as FEM, and we do this is a notation used here. So now to derive our slope deflection equations, say, okay, so this is our equation here. So EI, the fourth order equation. Okay, so if you ignore the load or something, so you have zero kind of a thing. So y is equal to, you see, a plus bx plus cx square plus dx cubic, and right, or you can directly start with second order also, that is ei, you see, y double dash, say, okay, is equal to minus m of x kind of a thing, and your bending moment. Okay, so if you take any section, say, whatever here I have written here, so if you take at any point the bending moment diagram, you see, so you know how to get the bending moment is, you see, MAB, and then you have the supports, that is your MAB plus you see MBA, say, okay, into x by L kind of a thing. So now to derive our slope deflection, you see, we can use the second order, or you can go for the fourth order equation itself. So if you go with the fourth order equation, say, okay, so this solution here, so you have to find out A, B, C, D constants. So the boundary conditions are y is equal to delta A at x is equal to 0, and y is equal to delta B at x is equal to L, Okay, and y is equal to is y dash, that's the slope, that is a theta a at x is equal to 0, and y dash say is a theta b at x is equal to l. Okay, so sometimes what we do is to simplify our problems, because this is a rigid translation is involved. Sometimes we also write as y is equal to 0 here, and here y is delta b minus delta a, which you can denote as some other delta also at x is equal to l. So this also you can use actually. Okay, there is nothing wrong. So now, so four constants are there. So four boundary conditions are there. So now you solve this boundary condition. So you have the constant a as some delta a, then b becomes your theta a kind of a thing, and your d, the constant d becomes 1 by l cube minus 2 into delta b minus delta a, okay, plus theta a plus theta b into l, and your c, the constant c, so this becomes 1 by l square, so 3 into delta b minus delta a minus 2 times theta a plus theta b into l. Okay, so these are the four constants. So now when you can substitute, so now we have our natural boundary conditions also. So now if you take y dash say at 0, now at 0 what's the bending moment? Now what is the 0 at this one? What is the bending moment here? So at x is equal to 0, the bending moment here is MAB. At x is equal to L, say your bending moment is your MBA. So now if you can to derive our slope deflection, we use this expressions. So y dash at 0 say is minus MAB by EI. Okay. So now you write this slope deflection, all the A, B, C, D. If you substitute, you can write as 2 by L square. So 3 into delta B minus delta A plus, sorry, minus minus 2 times theta A plus theta B into L. Okay. So this is your y dash double dash, and then you can also write as y double dash at L. So this is equal to your MBSA by EL. Okay. So now this also you can write. So this becomes finally you can so this becomes slightly this one. So minus MAB by EI, sorry, plus 6 by L square minus 2 delta B minus delta of A plus theta A plus theta B into L. So this is our and you rearrange these things nicely, say. Okay, so you adjust these things, write it in a nice fashion. You can write as MAB 2EI by L 2 times theta A, say, plus theta B minus 3 by L delta B minus delta A. Okay, so this is your MAB, and similarly say MBA. So this also becomes 2EI by L, and this becomes 2 times theta B plus theta A minus 3 by L delta B minus delta A. So these are our slope deflection equations, which you already people know in your UG actually. Okay, both are same. Only thing is theta A gets replaced with theta B, and delta B minus this is same. So instead of some textbooks say delta B minus delta A, they write as this delta also. Okay, so this is how we see we write our slope deflection. And if there is some FEMs are there, say the fixed end moments, so you add this term also, like MAB F kind of a thing, then MBSA F kind of a thing. You followed. So this is how we derive the slope deflection equations in your undergraduate. I think some textbooks you remember, they take if theta A is you see 1, and theta, so theta A you include, theta B you make it 0, say, and then delta A delta B 0. You can find out the end moments, like 4 EI, you remember 4 EI by L, 2 EI by L, like that we write, and then you can add all these contributions also, like theta A, you assume theta A to be non-zero, theta B all other 0, you write your end moments. Then you take theta B, say that is non-zero, all other things are zero, once again you write the end moments. Then similarly for the deflections, assuming theta A, theta B 0, only just there is a translation, you write. So automatically you will get your end moments, like 2 times this one. It is like, because the problem is a linear kind of a thing, so principle of superposition say. So like that also you can solve and get this, slope deflection equations. So this is very straightforward. There is nothing new. Whatever we have discussed, whatever is in your UG, these are the expressions. But now, if you want to do this, so this is what we call as the first order analysis. Okay. So this is a first order the analysis kind of a thing which we use. So now in our buckling say, because we are interested in buckling itself means your the load P is followed, it is higher, it is comparable. Okay. So then you have to include this P into your calculations, and already we have seen what is the effect of P on the deflection. So you can see that when P is a large say, so then your deflection, your bending moment, they all will get amplified. Okay, they all will get increased because of this P itself. So now when we are interested in the buckling, so the slope deflection equations, you have to modify by including this P also into our calculation. So this is the most the important thing in our buckling. So this is what we call as already I told you, second order analysis. Okay. So now everything remains the same, but only thing is the same equations you see, you have to solve including P also. So that is your so this is your deflection profile say. Okay. So this is your X, so this is your theta A. Okay. Now similarly say you have theta B, that is the rotations are there. So you have here MAB, then you have here MBA kind of a thing. So now as already I told you, you can write in terms of delta A, delta B kind of a thing, or you can directly write in terms of you see the delta also. So delta B, or you can also write in terms of delta also. So removing that rigid body rotation kind of a thing, sorry, rigid body translation. Okay. And now here the only difference is, now previously we had this no axial load was there, now we have to include this axial load also into the calculation. So this is your axial load P. Okay. So all other remaining things are all same, only thing is this is the one which is the term which is extra here. Okay. So now we have to derive our slope deflection equations including your this one, and now you have this shear force also. So the support reactions say. So here also you have this V. So this is your MAB. Previously it was MAB plus MBA by L, but now you have P times delta also, which comes into your calculations actually. So this is one extra term which comes in our calculations. P times delta, where delta is nothing but delta B minus delta A. Okay, so this is your shear force. So now if you try to write the bending moment diagram, say at any section you have MAB plus P times Y. This is an extra term which comes into your calculations, minus your support reaction multiplied by this one. So MBA plus MAB plus your P times delta say. Okay. So this multiplied by X by L. So this is an extra term. This is an extra term which comes in our calculations. Okay. So now you substitute. So Y double dash is minus MX by EI in the bending moment. This one say. So finally you have EI Y double dash. Okay. Plus P times Y is equal to minus M times EAB plus MAB plus MBA plus P times delta, okay, multiplied by X by L. So this is our equation of equilibrium. Okay. So now you can solve this second order, or you can try to do for the fourth order also. So if you differentiate, say 2 times, you will get fourth order equation. So P times Y double dash is equal to 0 kind of a thing you can write, and you can write this expression as you see this one plus K square Y double dash is equal to 0, where K is root of P by EI. Okay, so this is our equation. So we already know the solution for this equation. So you can write this as A sine, because of this K term say. So this extra term which has come, so you cannot write in terms of polynomials. So you have to write in terms of sinusoidal terms. So B cos K plus C times H plus D. So this is our solution for this ordinary differential equation. So now the boundary conditions are So y at 0 is 0, y at L is delta. As already I told you, you can use y at 0 as delta A and delta B also, or you can use y at 0 as 0, but y at L is delta B minus delta A, which we are denoting as a capital delta. And then y dash 0 say. So the slope is theta A and y dash L. So here the slope is theta B. Okay, so 4 constant. And then of course you have this boundary condition also, like y double dash at 0 say, which is same as your MAB by EL. Okay, so these are what you call as, this is the natural boundary conditions, y double dash at L, so my MBA by EL. So these natural boundary conditions we use to derive our slope deflection actually. Okay, so last time also I told you, right, when we discussed energy calculus of variations, we have what we call as natural boundary conditions. So these are required to derive our slope deflection. Okay, so first find out the constants A, B, C, D, then you substitute here, you will get your slope deflection. Okay, so now because of sine and cos, say, this makes us slightly complex. So if we denote beta as some KL kind of a thing, so if we write all the boundary conditions, so the first one, y at 0 is equal to, so B plus D, then delta, say A sine beta plus B cos sorry, this is B. So B cos beta plus CL plus D, then theta A. So this is equal to A times K plus C, then theta B. Say this is A K cos beta minus B K sin beta plus C. Okay, so these are the 4 boundary conditions. 4 things are there. So now you can write it in a matrix format also, like 0 1 0 1 sin beta, say cos beta L 1, okay, K 0 1 0, then we have K cos beta, then minus K sin beta 1 0. So you have a a matrix format, so A B C D. Okay, and your right hand side you have 0 delta theta A theta B. So these are the 4 equations. If you write nicely, you will get this one. So now to find out A, B, C, D, say, you solve this matrix equation. Okay, so you solve this equation. So now here the problem is, so Ax is equal to B kind of a thing. So now you have to find out, you see, the inverse of this matrix. But here the only problem is, you have this 4 by 4. Just 1 second. Hello. Sir, I am having class. 3 minutes. 10:50. Yes, so X becomes, you see, A inverse into B kind of a thing. So now you find out this inverse of 4 4 by 4 matrix. Nowadays in MATLAB, whether it is a 4 by 4 or 5 by 5, whatever matrix is that, you can easily get the inverse. Okay, the closed form you can find out. But in olden days, say, when MATLAB was not there, right, you have to, what rule you used to find out inverse of this type of matrices? Can anybody say?
Gauss elimination.
Gauss elimination, Kramer's rule, you remember, right? So
Kramer's rule.
many things are there, but nowadays I myself have forgotten, because MATLAB or Maple software, either 5 by 5 or 6 by 6, you give it automatically. Of course, that also uses these type of approaches, but now it is straightforward. Okay, so you solve this to get your ABCD kind of a thing. Okay, so finally, there is lot of calculations are involved here. So you can write this final expressions as MABC. EI by L. So you can write, okay, more or less similar format like the previous one. S1 times theta A, S2 times theta B minus S1 plus S2 into delta by L. Okay, and your MBA. So this becomes EI by L. S2 times theta A, you can see S1 times your theta B minus S1 plus S2 into delta by L. Okay, so now so S1 S2, say, so these are see, a very complicated expressions are there, but let me say. So S1 is So you see S1 is, you see, 1 minus beta cot, okay, beta by, you see, 2 tan beta by 2 by beta minus 1. So this is your S1. Now similarly say S2. So this is beta cosecant actually, beta minus 1 by 2 tan, of course denominator is same, beta by 2 minus by beta, so this 1 becomes like this. Okay, so these are our final these equations. Okay, so you can see how the slope deflection equations looks like when you include the axial loads also into our calculations. So the expressions are exactly same like whatever you had previously. And now when you in these expressions, if you assume P is 0, that is there is no axial load, so your S1 S2 say all these things goes towards your ordinary slope deflection equations which we derived previously, which you have already know from your undergraduate course. Okay, so you can see now when P is 0, say what will be the value of S1 now. See, when P is 0, your S1 becomes automatically 2 itself actually, and your S2 say may become, you followed right, 1 itself, and your S1 plus S2, what is S1 plus S2 now? See, what's the value here? 3 is here. So when P is 0, say, okay, so your S1 becomes 2, S2 becomes 1, so 2 plus 1 becomes 3. So you can see, you can verify whether you are proceeding in the right direction or not. So when P is equal to 0, you should get back your original equations itself, okay, which is perfectly valid, it comes. So these are our slope deflection equations from our second order analysis, including your the axial load. And if there are fixed end moments are there, say, so we add this extra term also. Okay, so fine. So I will stop here. So we will continue in our the next class. Okay, is it fine? Now you people are there, right? Is it fine, right? If you have any questions, you can ask.